Good afternoon. My name is Nick Brooks. I'm the Secretary General of ALLRAIL, the Alliance of Passenger Rail New Entrants in Europe. And we're a non-profit based in Brussels, Belgium, calling for faster market opening in passenger rail. This afternoon, I have the pleasure of moderating Track to the Future, a webinar on how to make rail more attractive and affordable. Thanks for joining us this afternoon in Europe, but also to those of you following us from around the world. In Asia, where it's already the evening, and in North America, where it's already early in the morning right now. It's good to see that growing passenger rail is an issue of global interest. Now I'd like to introduce our top-notch speakers today, starting with Kristian Schmidt, who is Director for Land Transport at the European Commission's Directorate General for Mobility and Transport, DG Move. He's been in this role since April 2021, and he oversees efforts on shaping greener land transport. Kristian previously served as EU ambassador to Myanmar and Uganda, and prior to that, he held several senior positions in the European Union's headquarters in Brussels. Next, we have Barbara Thaler, MEP from the European People's Party in Austria. She has been representing the Austrian region of Tyrol in the European Parliament since 2019. She's a member of and vice coordinator of the EPP group in the Transport and Tourism Committee, TRAN. Prior to joining the European Parliament, Barbara has had her own PR agency, and she also founded and led an online hotel booking portal. Since 2015, she has acted as vice president of the Tyrolean Economic Chamber. Next, we have Anna Deparnay-Grunenberg, MEP from the Greens in Germany. She's been a member of the European Parliament since 2019. Anna is a full member of the Transport and Tourism TRAN Committee. She's also a vice president of Rail Forum Europe, the MEPs association dedicated to rail transport. Before joining the European Parliament, she was at the Stuttgart City Council, first a local city councillor and then chair of the Green Group. Next, we have André Schwämmlein. He's the CEO of FlixMobility, and he launched FlixBus with Jochen Engert and Daniel Kraus in 2013 to deliver a revolutionary means of travel that combined technological advances, e-commerce capabilities, and sustainable transportation. FlixTrain was then launched in 2018 in Germany, and it started its first services in Sweden earlier this year. Previously, André worked as a strategic consultant at the Boston Consulting Group. And then last but not least, Adam Holmberg has been the head of Snälltåget, which is part of the Transdev group. Snälltåget is a Swedish long-distance operator, and he's been in this role since 2013. More recently, Adam has overseen the launch of the first privately owned night train offering, which runs between Berlin and Stockholm via Denmark. Previously, Adam was at Veolia, a French multinational company dealing with water management, waste management, and energy services. And prior to that, at Scania, a Swedish manufacturer focusing on commercial vehicles. Before we begin with the questions, I'd like to remind the whole audience that you can submit questions on Slido during this event. The event is called #TrackToTheFuture. So I'll be looking out for your questions as we proceed over the next hour. And next up, icebreaker for the panel. And I'd like you all, please, to reply with a thumbs up or a thumbs down to these questions. So, are we ready? First one, did you travel on a train at any time over the last month? Yes or no? Secondly, do you think that people in the EU can afford to travel by train right now? Do you think passenger rail is affordable? Thirdly, will we, that means Europe, be able to double passenger numbers with the current legislation over the next 7 to 8 years? And the final question, do you think that competition will attract more passengers to rail than if there were no competition at all? Great. So now I'd like to start with a question, and perhaps in order to give each panelist a chance to give a short opening statement of maybe 3 minutes or so. Could you respond to the following question? The EU has ambitious targets to significantly increase rail passenger numbers as a step to reducing carbon emissions. I mean, we all know that. Are the measures currently in place or being discussed right now sufficient to reach that goal by 2030, 2050? If not, what are the obstacles? What else needs to be done, and who should do it? Could we begin, please, with Kristian Schmidt from the European Commission?
Thanks a lot, Nick. And 3 elements in my reply. First of all, we need more competition. And let me stress immediately by that, I don't mean a lack of cooperation. We need cooperation. This is a network industry. It's a special sector, but we need competition. Again, let me also stress, I'm not saying here we need privatization. That is not what is in the EU law. But we need independent infrastructure managers and then competition for services. And frankly, we have seen in the countries where they have quickly implemented the opportunities like Italy, Spain, and Sweden as well. And the example is one of the panelists here. We have seen overall ridership increase, prices go down, and more revenues being generated. So that's my first element in reply to your question. The second is we need a level playing field. Obviously, the Commission does not believe that rail will increase its modal share if we make other modes more expensive alone. Rail has to gain its own place in the modal share by being more competitive and therefore more affordable. So we need to invest, but we also need to compete among the services that are being offered so that customers get the best possible price. And thirdly, and this is where certainly when you were asking about, is the current legislation enough? I was a bit like this, because yes, we have the 4th railway package that sets the regulatory framework, but we haven't collectively, and here I mean the Commission, I mean the legislators, but I also mean the industry and the incumbents. We haven't done enough together to remove all the obstacles that are there in place for the market to function. And that's where the Commission will be focusing with an action plan on long distance passenger rail to be presented in December. I can, in a second intervention, perhaps give the details of this, but there are certainly obstacles that are preventing operators from using all the opportunities, ticketing, rolling stock, etc. But these are details. But yeah, we can reach the targets, Nick. But there are still things we need to do in order to create the right conditions. Thank you.
Good to hear. Could we then move to the elected representatives? Perhaps Barbaratala MEP, please.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everyone, and thanks again for the invitation. Yeah, Nick, I think your question is indeed a very important question. First, how are we going to make rail more attractive, and second, who is responsible for this, and who is going to be held accountable by whom and for what? So, to be more precise, my questions are: where should the European level intervene and how? And which responsibilities have, responsibilities have to be carried by the sector itself? And we should not forget about the citizens. So what role do citizens play? And I think modern history clearly indicates that European legislation can only be successfully implemented and executed if it does not interfere with decisions our citizens have to make for themselves. So how I get from A to B is, for me, clearly a prime example of a case where people prefer to decide for themselves. And although we frequently hear that we need behavioral change, I think it is a problem which needs to be addressed, and I regard it as of the solution. So in a free market economy, people are free to choose. And I think the variables are all the same for all modes. It is about availability, it is about punctuality, it is about flexibility and convenience, and of course, affordability. And I put my thumbs this way when you asked about can people afford going by train, because the answer would be it depends I know this is not a very sexy answer, but it depends. So consequently, I think if railway doesn't meet the demand or the offer does not convince, it lies within the responsibility of railway undertakings to make a better offer. And as legislature, we have to make a level playing field so that the undertakings can make better offers. And I think it is not the responsibility of potential passengers to adapt his or her needs. So I strongly support the Commission in its quest of inserting competition into the rail ecosystem and to further embrace the role as enabler and the role as guardian of a diverse European railway ecosystem. But it is also on us as European Parliament to forcefully engage with Council to pursue and to deliver the single European railway area. So the same we did with aviation and roads decades ago. So I think getting the right legislative framework done, which essentially ensures a fair market access and a set of common technical standards, a set of administrative rules all across over Europe. This is the ultimate responsibility of the European Union. But we also need proper enforcement in place. And this is why I put my thumbs up when you asked if the current legislation is enough. And I think, yes, of course, we can do it a little bit better on several issues, but in principle, yes, it is more about execution, I think. So if we get this job done, all other pieces fall into place and we do not need to reinvent the wheel. FlixBus is just 10 years old and shows to everyone how a modern 21st century service can be established across Europe when the right rules are in place. And as we heard last week, the concept can be even successfully implemented on other continents. So yeah, I think we certainly would like to see the dynamic within the rail sector, the same dynamic. But in order to do so, politics must restrain itself and accept that we can only set the right frame and ensure a level playing field. But then it's up to the companies to deliver. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anna Deparnay-Grunenberg, MEP, do you think the measures currently in place are sufficient to reach climate change goals, or do you think something else needs to be done?
A lot has to be done. I think we are really before a big transformation of all our systems and habits, and also in transport and mobility. And I think we have to rethink a lot of old systems to make them better for the future. I think it's really new to think in a time of economy for the common good, where competition has a big place to play, but where we are defining as society what is a common good, and for example, which type of transport is participating to the common good, on which less. And after that, we have to adjust our rules, and also how we are pushing or pulling some mode of transport or not. And we are really far away from this overall transformation of transport. So regarding to rail, we know that we need rail to tackle climate change. That's really clear. We need a renaissance of the rail system. And we need more competition. That's why I put my thumb up on the tracks in Europe to get out of all the potential we see. But at the same time, we need a good planned infrastructure, and we need a kind of frame, a kind of leadership, because we cannot just let the competition play alone. The one hand, we need competition because we need the rail in the rail sector, all entrepreneur, and we need the diversity, proposing a benchmark of different type of traveling modes. But sometimes the sector is now blocking itself because of old habits, I would say. And yes, more competition, yes, but it has to take place in a regulated manner. Because the rail comes from the network effect. So you cannot just put the better cherry on the market and let the citizens fall behind. So we have to have a look on local rail passenger transport, for example. It's sometimes in competition with other mobility ideas, and we have to invest and to have a huge invest in infrastructure. We have to put forward the planning capacity of our administrations. So that cannot do the market alone. And I think we have to look at all this, we call it now personal service obligation, but where we need more and where we're making maybe some offers or some where the market cannot play alone. So that's really important for me. And I think we should focus also, and that's also what my colleague Thaler and Mr. Stitt said, we have to look after a level playing field and fair competition between transport modes. That would be the most we can do, I think, to make rail train affordable. So we need a kerosene tax for flights and no VAT for international train tickets. We need a reduction for rail track use. So we really have to be better in this. So we have a lot to do. And the last point, it's really important for me, and I would really be happy to hear your voice on that, is how can we be better on through ticketing? We need, I think, an EU-wide booking platform, because citizens can just know what's happening when we have full information and full transparency. So we need better information and better through ticketing between all transport modes and all operators, so we can really have the whole network playing its role. So that would be my first point on this, and really happy to hear your comments on my question.
So thank you very much. Moving to the sector then, André and Carl Adam, you've heard what the elected representatives and the European Commission have said. Do you think the measures currently in place are sufficient to reach the goal of climate change, the ambitious climate change goals that Europe has? If not, what are the obstacles that are still in place, please? Could we start with André Schwämmlein from FlixMobility?
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think what is great is I think we're all aligned on the target, and that we know what the measures are that we have at hand. I mean, and clearly, the carbon emission reduction is now the key priority as we move out of COVID, and making rail more attractive is a key step to like balance environmental objectives and mobility needs. I want to stress one point, that's especially the affordability topic, because this is what we have seen in many other markets, that it draws a lot of demand towards a mean of transport. And yes, we have done that with bus in a very open environment, competitive wise. And we try to do that in train too. Two things from our perspective are extremely important. One is that the current financing is, has to be transparent and efficient. We are in a world of constrained resources financially, and therefore, even if we invest a lot, we have to make it work efficiently. And then obviously, as already pointed out, the existing legislation has to be properly implemented. Getting to the first point, I mean, at the moment, it's what we see, the financing of rail is in many cases highly intransparent and from our perspective inefficient. You see that usually new entrants have no real fair chance to emerge. That's why in many markets relatively low competitive activity, and therefore we miss also a significant increase in passenger numbers. And I mean, talking Sweden, Carl Adam can talk more, and I think we're competing actively, and I think to the benefit of the consumer, and also the Spanish opening where we are not involved shows the potential of free competition. And I think the core part is clearly the separation between operations of service and infrastructure, and we cannot understand as the ones who have to do the job, and I agree with the elected representatives, we have to do the job, and if you provide the environment. And we can understand why the very obvious advice from every expert and the European Commission to separate infrastructure and operations is not followed by so many countries. This leads to high access fees, which are essentially only prohibiting competition. And I mean, the French and the Germans are doing that proactively and very openly with the track access charges. Other markets like Sweden and Italy have gone a different way and have seen tremendous growth in passenger numbers. And also like the topic of bookings channels, I think it's a fair one. especially if you look on the European scale. Yes, true, but the immediate first step is the incumbent channels are often blocked for a very long time, and there's also prohibiting competition. The second piece is the obstacles and which should be removed by the fourth railway package. And also here, taking Sweden as an example, I think an independent infrastructure manager, a fair and transparent process, and that doesn't mean we always win. We also have to do our compromises, but we have the feeling it's a fair process. And also in terms of like creating with low track access charges new services by the incumbent and by new entrants really boosts the offer. And I think there are great examples out there in Europe how it can work. And I think we should all take a very close look. And then I tend to agree, despite my initial thumb sign, the legislation is available, but it's not properly implemented. And if we don't do a bigger step towards that, I think we will not get there. If we follow the guidance that is the spirit of the fourth railway package and open a level playing field, I think there is a path, and we are willing to deliver. I mean, we will invest in the European rail system, and we are willing to deliver and contribute to the climate goals. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And then finally, Adam Holmberg from Snälltåget. You've heard what the other speakers have said. Do you think the measures in place are enough, or do we need more?
Yes, I will try to answer on that. So first of all, thank you for having me as well, and I'm glad to be here. I think coming back to the main question, I think I don't know, to be honest, because I don't think that many countries has really implemented the fourth railway package. So I think it's very hard to answer, to be honest. But I think my panelist colleagues has been, I think, covering most of my points as well. I think we need to look on some particular questions. I really believe that competition is one of them, and I mean we are one player been a part of the competition process, which has been a part of the first railway package pretty much in Sweden. So we started our business in 2007, so it's already 14 years ago. And I think one question or one word or one sentence which is mentioned quite often, that's a level playing field. And I think the level playing field is a quite important thing when it comes to the development coming ahead of us. And I think when we're talking about this level playing field, I think from the political point of view, we most often compare it with other transport modes, but I think we also need to cover what FlixTrain is or FlixMobility is communicating. I mean, that's within our segment as well, that we need to have a level playing field. And I also think when we're staying on the level playing field message, I think we also need to learn from other playing fields or other modes of transport, because sometimes we tend to treat the railway like something which is completely different. And in some cases, it is completely different, but we share the same basic idea that's making everyday life possible. We make it possible to travel, etc., etc. So I think from that point of view, we need to look a little bit wider than just on these kind of basic obstacles. And I mean, we have been operating cross-border trains for quite a long time as well, since 2012, and now cross-border night trains via Sweden, Denmark, and Germany, and from next year also down to another country, to Austria. So from next year it will be actually 4 countries. And coming back to the situation right now, it's always a big obstacle to start a service in a new country, because I mean, coming back to the question, how well do the fourth railway package work? From that point of view, it's not working very well, because it's a completely different level playing field as me as a railway undertaker coming into a new country, because it's always other regulations, there is other safety regulations, very detailed demands which differs, and that's always a challenge, making a good product for your customers or for your citizen, put it that way. And I think sometimes it's not just related to the infrastructure itself. I mean, we have been talking about it already, and I think it's worth mentioning again that we need to have a look at the track access fees, for instance. But we can also see other obstacles in terms of the border controls on the borders, which is not really working very well right now. And it's not just a COVID thing. It's been a thing that we have been seeing for quite a long time. And especially combining a cross-border procedure with a night train, I can tell because we have been running night trains through Denmark since June this year, and having a situation where you need to wake up your customers 2 o'clock in the night to task them to show their passport, then we will never see a 100% increase in rail segment. And talking with the politician in Denmark, they say, oh, but this is not a legal question, that's a transport question. And talking with the transport politician, no, that's a legal question. And we can't just look back. We need to look at the true topic and try to find a solution as a society, from my point of view. So I think we also need to look at those kind of practical questions, which is also blocking the development in the end. So just giving that perspective as well.
Okay, thank you. Can we actually stick with you, Carl Adam, straight away for the next question? You talked about expanding your night train service to Austria in the near future. And you do, as Snälltåget, you offer commercially driven open access night trains and some daytime trains too. And one of the previous panelists, Mrs. Deparnay-Grunenberg, MEP, said that she's open to some public service obligations in cases where there is not open access. What do you think about that statement? How much open access should there be in cross-border rail and how much PSO? Because we're well aware that some of the historical state-owned companies are very keen on PSO. I mean, that's for them the future of cross-border rail. You probably don't agree with that, do you?
No, not really. I sometimes make a comparison with talking about consuming painkillers or finding the remedy. And I think sometimes PSO could be seen as like a painkiller, that we don't really look at the true obstacles, and we just take some painkillers and then we can't see them anymore. And the painkiller in that perspective, that's money. For me, I would say that the true long-term solution, both as a citizen, as a representative, as for Snälltåget, is we need to find a long-term condition for making it more sustainable for us to operate more trains. Because could we, for instance, lower the track access fees? We could find better border control, which is actually one of the biggest challenges with our Berlin service right now. Could we find solutions on those kind of questions? Then we will most likely have a lower cost for operating our service, and maybe the political target is to have a daily service between, let's say, Scandinavia and Germany, and whether the market situation will be there and we could have a condition which is motivating us to operate that kind of service, we will definitely do it. And it's not just for Snälltåget. I know there's a lot of other good players trying to find out good offers for the citizens and for the customers. So for me, it's more a matter of conditions than just finding more PSOs solutions or setups.
So you mean adapting the market conditions to make it more viable to be commercially driven open access services, such as reducing track access fees and impartial ticket retail and access to rolling stock, etc.
Yeah, there's a long list of questions. I mean, we can talk about the safety languages, etc., etc. But I think that's the main one or main ones, so to speak.
Okay. Could I go to André Schwämmlein on this issue, please? Sometimes in recent months, some stakeholders, André, have said that certain secondary cities are not connected enough by rail, that there aren't direct services from the capital city, for example, and that there needs to be some kind of long distance public service obligation. What do you think about that, please, André Schwämmlein?
I think also here from the reference of the bus industry and the bus market, I mean, when we started FlixBus about almost 10 years ago, people told us, it's only going to be Berlin, Hamburg and Berlin, Cologne, and no one's going to operate the small cities, and they're only taking the cherry and not the cake. We operate in Europe like 2,500 stops. We serve a more dense network than any other carrier in Europe, and we serve all the small cities. Yes, not like 10 times a day to Berlin, but like we are often the backbone. And I mean, Barbara Thaler already commented on that. We have the same role now in the US. We serve also here more than 2,500 communities in a free market environment. So if you really work on the frame conditions of the market, we will serve these stops. And if you look at the Snälltåget offer, I mean, you're also serving the small stops in between Stockholm and Malmö. And we do the same between Stockholm and Gothenburg. There is no reason, if there is a good market environment, that the small stops won't be tackled. And I agree with the painkiller analogy. Yeah, you can fix now like the connection between small city B to major city, but you should work on the framework, and then we will take care of it. And we are eager. And if there's a market and there are proper incentives like low track access charges, we will deliver. I mean, we are eager to build the market also in second tier cities. It's not going to be only Berlin, Hamburg, and it is already today not.
Okay, thank you. And I should also add that one of ALLRAIL's other members, Italo in Italy, this summer started serving secondary cities, such as Bari, that were previously done in a long-distance PSO. So they replaced long-distance PSO with long-distance commercially driven services.
Calling Bari a secondary city, Nick, will enrage some people in southern Italy, but
that's true as well. That's true as well. Anna Deparnay-Grunenberg, you talked about the PSO issue, the open access issue, and ticketing as well. Through ticketing or transparent ticketing was also one of your key issues. What do you think still needs to be done on the ticketing front? We are aware, and I'll come to Kristian Schmidt afterwards, we're aware that the European Commission is planning something. Do you have any more specifics about what you're hoping for from the ticketing arena, please? Followed by Barbara Thaler.
Yeah, of course. First of all, I was really disappointed that the recast of the rail passenger rights was a missed opportunity to really set rules, what we need on through ticketing and open interface. I think that's a real problem that we have this old member state closed enterprises that they want not to share the market in the way that they are owning their data and owning also the interface and owning the platform, and they can play how they open it or not to competition, and that's not fair. So if on the one side we go for more competition within rule and within frame and within some goals, not a wide competition, but a really good frame competition, we have to open the data, we have to open the information, and we cannot have one part of the market that is holding back information. So that's really bad that this rail passenger rights was not clear on that. And we really saw that the EU Parliament, so I would say the representative of the citizens was open to that, but the member state closed the door back. So we have to push again the Commission to go now with a new tool, with a new idea on that. We are speaking a lot about this EU-wide booking platform. There is few models. At the beginning, it was always the idea that the sector as itself will provide it. But as we know, there are some players that don't want to be in real competition. I think we cannot just wait for years and decades for the sector to provide this opening from information. And to come a little bit back to the discussion we had just before, and with the painkiller and the therapy, I think we should be really modern and open. And also, in modern therapy, you sometimes need some painkiller, and you can go deep into the patterns, how you can recover your own health. So that's not just do one or the other one. Of course, you cannot just do painkiller and ignoring the rest. But sometimes to start, a new period of your health, or maybe the new part of the market, you need in a really clear and transparent way some push to begin something new. And that's not about maybe you need some yoga and some stuff as well. So it's not playing each beside the others, but be really clear what we need. But on the EU booking platform, we are really close together. We need that, and I'm pushing that a lot in the Commission. And maybe you can give me your thought. What are really the key elements that you can make open competition for the best, for our common goal, that is reducing CO2, making affordable prices for our citizens, that they want to take the train and to have this really a good system of interconnected and interoperable mode of transport that is the backbone, the rail.
Okay, thanks very much. Well, passing on then to Barbara Thaler, MEP. You've heard the discussion so far, Barbara, about through ticketing or lack of through ticketing and PSO open access. What do you think? And then we'll pass on to Kristian Schmidt afterwards. What do you think the Commission should do next, Barbara?
I agree with all the colleagues, and for example, of course with Anna, that we need a really good through ticketing all over Europe. Last week, I spent 22 hours on several trains all over Europe, and I went from Innsbruck to Strasbourg and back to Innsbruck, and I need 6 different tickets. So again, I'm handling with paper, and it is very uncomfortable. So this is about convenience. So I really would love to see one European booking platform on my mobile phone in the future. So this is, I think, one of the most important things when it comes to convenience, especially for frequent travelers. And one sentence, but more one question on the rail passenger rights, because Anna mentioned that. I would also love to hear from the industry. What is your opinion on the rail passenger rights? I have the feeling, I think that we made a good step forward to open access, to open data, but it is maybe there was too less time for the industry, and then there was COVID, so maybe it's too early to decide on that. So I would really love to hear the industry's opinion on the rail passenger rights when it comes to the open access, open data.
Okay, we'll do that a bit later on, but next please to Kristian Schmidt from the European Commission. Kristian, you spent some of the last weeks tootling around Europe on the Connecting Europe Express. We're in a train that ultimately normal passengers could, a similar route or a similar journey, they could not book in one through ticket. And of course, we had the rail passenger rights earlier this year, where through ticketing was supposedly improved. I think it was only between companies with the same ownership or something like that. Is that enough, Kristian, or do we need more on the through ticketing front? And do you also have any thoughts on the open access PSO debate that took place a little bit earlier?
Yeah, let me start with the PSO issue, Nick, and then come to the ticketing issue. First of all, I entirely agree with Anna Deparnay-Grunenberg that society has common goods and society objectives in the area of rail. This is a common good, and that's why EU taxpayers' money is being invested into rail through the Recovery and Resilience Facility, and so you expect more than just the market alone. You expect social goals to be achieved, and I would say there we have the perfect EU legislation in place, the PSO legislation. But it's also very, very clear that, and let's be clear, PSO is what? It's a public subsidy. Yeah, that's what it is, and therefore you only want to put a public subsidy on a train connection if the market can't provide. So very important, including for the cross-border links, that test is made before decisions are made at political level to put public money into a new connection that otherwise could be taken care of. And we have heard from speakers here on this call and others that they are looking at all different connections. So PSOs are useful. They should simply not be abused. They are the plan B when the market has not delivered. And you mentioned night trains. I am Danish, and you mentioned the CEE. I would love to take a night train from Copenhagen to Brussels. It existed when I first came to Europe 30 years ago. It doesn't exist today. Why is that? It is because the member states in question have not been able to succeed in a tender trying to combine PSOs with passing through Germany, where there are no PSOs at federal level, etc. So we need to fix these things. So if the market can't provide this service, then a combination of open access and public subsidy can achieve that. So that's just to set the policy straight. We should not allow public subsidies to compensate for either lack of exploring the market option or for addressing the obstacles that Carl Adam mentioned, or the additional costs that are there because all of us have not collectively tackled all the interoperability issues, all the language issues, all the national rules, all these things that add to the burden and costs of rail, and in particular cross-border rail. Those obstacles have to go away, because then, of course, it's going to be a lot easier for open access operators to succeed. So let's not ask our taxpayers to compensate for us not having done our job in eliminating those obstacles. But if all of that is done and we still have a society need that is not met, then of course PSOs are there and they are being used extensively. So it's not that it's some sort of a limited case. I come to your question of ticketing. Clearly here the existing lack of a market offer on through ticketing continues to limit the protection of passengers in practice. So we have studied this, and we agree that this is not a finished business. We have a recently revised set of rail passenger rights that gave a new obligation to operators on real-time travel and traffic information, and it introduced some improvements on the availability of through tickets, but we're not there yet. And we are in dialogue with the industry, and I think it has understood that this is not something that we can wait for another 10 years. Competing with other modes, the vision must be very clearly one click, you buy your ticket. Berlin, Brussels, even if you have to change through different operators. And it is not the technology that is preventing this from happening. I mean, it's not rocket science on IT tools. There is all kinds of software that can make these various data platforms of the ticketing data talk together and provide retail options for ticketing. So it's more the absence of commercial agreements between the various railway undertakings, and also, if I may say, a bit of, we will not want to share our offer on a platform where others can then compare. So there's also a little bit of sort of pushing back on that. The Commission is working on all the technical aspects of that, but we are also willing to come forward with legislation to promote open sharing of data, so that these intermodal and complete ticketing offers can be made. We're looking at the sector to do it, but if they don't, obviously legislation should be also considered, because the current situation is not satisfactory. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kristian. Just to pick up very quickly on something you said, that you said there was extensive public service obligations still, extensive PSO, which is public money essentially financing that. You also admitted there is still work to be done on through ticketing. Could you not at least say, well, there has to be through ticketing between PSOs? If it's public money that's financing these PSOs, it's not really the operator's own commercial decision whether they do through ticketing or not. Let's enforce it so at least PSO services have through ticketing across Europe, because they still have, I think, over 60% of the whole market is PSO. So perhaps that's a short-term through ticketing solution there.
Yeah, this they can sort out between themselves, as I said, in commercial agreement from operator to operator. But for us, we have this vision of multimodal transport. So we would like to introduce also a ticketing system where whether you take first a bus or a metro, then to the train, and then you finally catch a flight, transatlantic or one, but you have this seamless multimodal system. That's the vision that we are working on to implement. So I'd be careful not to sort of say let's do small fixes to just part of the other market. The principle has to be, if you're offering a transport service, you put your market offer open for others to then combine the retail offer. That's the ambition we think we should be moving towards.
Okay, thank you. Could I pass, please, to André Schwämmlein from FlixMobility? I think Barbara Thaler, MEP, asked what you think of the recent rail passenger rights legislation, if there's really been any improvements for the sector through that, in your opinion. And also, what did you think of what was just discussed, please, André?
I would, happy to also comment very quickly on the last point, and that's why I rose my hand. I think the Copenhagen-Brussels example is a prime example of where you don't need a PSO, but you need lower track access charges in Germany. And then you can, and most likely it's not going to be us, it's going to be Carl Adam operating it, more likely than Flix. But I think it's a prime example where PSO is the complete wrong approach, and you should lower track access fees in Germany. Not you, Christian, I know it's not you. But then you get an open market, and Deutsche Bank can try it. Everyone can try it. SJ can try it. Snälltåget can try it. We could try it, and that's I think the very obvious trade-off between these PSO and not doing the homework on the track access charges and the infrastructure.
I agree with you, André.
Me too.
And rail passenger rights, André, and Carl Adam as well, please, Carl Adam. What do you think of the most recent rail passenger rights legislation that went through the European institutions earlier this year? Is it enough, or do we need more on the rail passenger rights? Perhaps Carl Adam, do you have an opinion there?
Actually, I don't really have it because I'm not that involved in the last version, to be honest. So I think maybe André is better to give an answer on that, because.
Well, I mean, do you think it's basically one of the key things I think is through tickets, whether that should be possible between different operators or?
No, but I think in principle, of course, I think we need to find better cooperation within the industry, of course. I still think that we could not really maybe have a target that all different companies should be having a partnership with all other companies, because that's, as far as I know, there is no such thing in the whole world that everything is combined in one box, and you can find everything on that sales platform. But I'm not the person to say, but I think definitely that we need a lot of more cooperation, because we need to offer more solutions, which is taking the customer demand in a different way. And I mean, we launched in 2019 the opportunity to combine a trip with Snälltåget with a trip with DB to 30 German cities, and that was like the first kind of through ticketing, making possible to buy on our web page. So I mean, that's 2 years ago, and still I don't think we have a lot of more examples in place. So definitely that's a very important question, to find more solutions like that to make rail more attractive for the customers and for the citizen, of course.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's move on to some of the Slido questions, and please, everybody that's watching this, you do have the chance to submit your questions on Slido at #TrackToTheFuture. And let's go to somewhere else in Europe, to Central and Eastern Europe. We've got a question whether open access or commercially driven long distance passenger rail services are even possible there, due to the fact that at the moment, Central Eastern Europe still only has limited and outdated rail infrastructure. Perhaps André Schwämmlein would like to take a stab with this one.
I think very quickly commenting on the infrastructure, and I mean, obviously there is a need to invest. I think it's and with all the discussions on the booking that we see, we also have to acknowledge that there's a lot of hard work to do, and the hard work usually has to do with hardware, and we shouldn't be distracted too much by a booking system will solve it. No, it won't. We need tracks, we need stations, and we need it all over Europe to connect the countries. And I think that's the prime lever. Nevertheless, I think I think Eastern Europe is a nice example. You can do a lot in an environment, even with the tracks that you have, if you have the right framework in place. And I mean, also talking to or looking at a competitor, I think Czech Republic, for example, has done a really good job on fostering competition.
Okay, thank you. Just continuing there, we've got another question on Slido, is regarding rail passenger transport across the entire continent. There isn't really, allegedly, any real European rail enterprise yet. They're all national. There's nothing really like a European passenger rail company. Would you agree with that statement, or do you think it's still to emerge, or you are already that company? What's your view on this question, please? André.
I think Carl and myself can say the same thing. And we are, at least we are as international as a private company can be. I mean, we have the ambition to do it cross country. And I think there's a European path. I mean, it's one market. It's one of our assets as European Union that we have a strong market. And if we have a good framework, I think we can do good stuff here.
And Kristian Schmidt from the European Commission, are you at the EU level, are you looking for pan-European companies? Is that what you're hoping for? Obviously, the passenger rail in the past has had national incumbents that have kind of focused on their member states. But are you looking for more cross-border activities by companies, whether they are privately or publicly owned?
Yes, we're looking for more cross-border. I mean, I think the current figure is that only 7% of cross-border rail crosses, of all rail crosses borders. So that's a rather low proportion of cross-border traffic. And of course, for rail, long distance, we see a much higher potential. And we need actors to do that. So we need operators who does that. Travel across, whether that has to be a sort of a European company. We just had one called the Connecting Europe Express, traveling on a one-off trip across Europe. It took a year to prepare. So I think what we need is to make a lot of progress on the interoperability issues, because any company that would try to cover, let's say, just half of the member states would have to overcome all these various technical challenges that are still there. You know, speaking as a regulator, our job is to simply improve those conditions, and then the market will explore the opportunities. But obviously, yes, I think there would be a demand for a lot more genuine European cross-border services to be offered. Let's also be realistic. I mean, the fourth railway package has just only entered into force. We are talking about the first year, also for the technical pillar, and already we've seen a lot of new offers coming in the middle of a pandemic. Yeah, this was probably not the best opportunity, and I salute all the open market access operators who have survived introducing new services in a climate that was so difficult for new entrants. Yeah, I think there is a bright future. We have the wind on our back, as André is saying. We need more investments. They are coming from the Recovery and Resilience Facility. So let's keep at it. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our elected representatives here. Kristian Schmidt from the Commission just talked about the special Connecting Europe Express, which was a one-off train passing around Europe. Do you both think that it's a good thing that a passenger rail operator from one EU member state in the future can just pass across the border with the same locomotive, the same rolling stock? Remember, with the Connecting Europe Express, I think we had many locomotive changes. Do you think that ideally you should, any rail company, no matter where they're based in Europe, should be allowed to operate right to the other side of Europe if they want to, on their own, without having to partner up? Because we know that's what the state railway companies very much like to do. They like to split up Europe and then have these cross-border collaborations. Do you think the collaborations are a good thing, or are you looking more for companies to go straight across the border, a bit like airlines do? Could we start with Barbara Thaler, please?
Yes, thank you, Nick. Of course, we need, if we want the European single railway area to be done, we need seamless train rides. Of course, at some point, you always have to partner up with other competent authorities. I think this is not meant with seamless, yeah. So you have to partner up at some point, but we need to get rid of all those requirements which needs to make a stop very long. There needs to be stops anyhow, but especially when it comes to rail freight, a lot of rail freight trains have to wait for hours at when they do cross-border trains. So yes, seamless, yes, but it doesn't mean that there is no stop at all. So of course there needs to be stops. I want to add something on the question from the audience before when it comes to investments on rail infrastructure, especially to the eastern part. I just wanted to mention that within the RRF budgets, the next generation budgets, a lot of member states have planned to use a lot of money on investing in rail infrastructure. And I think this is the right way to do so. So if there is one positive side effect of this pandemic, maybe this can be a positive effect for the rail sector.
Okay, thank you. Anna Deparnay-Grunenberg, I know you've raised your hand a few minutes ago. Do you agree with what Barbara just said, that you still need to partner when you go across borders within Europe? Or do you think the trains should just be able to go on their own without a cooperation wherever they should want to across the European Union?
But I think we have to support, to reduce obstacles. That's a common, I think, to all of us. And first of all, the low-hanging fruits should be to strengthen maybe the ERA, the European Rail Agency, to foster this harmonization, in particular in the way where they are purely human-made. So about the language, about the security specification, that could be really done in a fast way. And the second step is, of course, to have a look on the hardware and to harmonize it. It's a bit longer, but we have to do both. And at the end, I would like to see a single area and no obstacle at all. But I think we have, as politicians, we have to have a look on both the long distance traveling more as a competition to plane and to flight and to those emissions, but also we have to look on regional area cross border, because we all know that the most CO2 emissions are in the everyday life, and we have more people, they need in a regional level some alternative to the car to go to their work, to look for their children or to their activities. Then so we cannot just, although I love the night trains and love the perspective, we can soon travel all about Europe with the night trains and with some different new modes of taking the train. We have to have a look also at this regional level. How can we make the everyday transport mode? And I'm sure that the state level is neat in there to make this cross-border regional transport happening. So it's doing both. But to reduce the obstacle, that's really good for both. So we have to do this step, and we have so many national routes that are still existing and so inefficient. And that's, I think, I hope if the CEE's Connecting Europe Express we have seen now is really good for one thing, that we had a kind of retreat for the Commission to see all these obstacles and really to work with the national levels and the ERA to go to the next step now.
So you think the Connecting Europe Express really highlighted the obstacles in a single European passenger rail market?
And
definitely.
the positive side of traveling, of course, too.
Moving on then to another question, please, from the audience, from Slido. And to anyone listening, please do submit further questions on the hashtag Track to the Future. This one is about rolling stock, and specifically to our sector representatives today. Both Snälltåget and FlixTrain are using second-hand carriages. So, Carl, Adam, and André, what's stopping you from ordering new trains? Is there an absence? Is there an absence of a market? Are there not enough manufacturers? Or why don't you? Are you looking to have new trains in the future? Perhaps we can start with Carl Adam from Snälltåget.
No, but I think that's a good question, actually. And I wouldn't say that we are not looking for a new rolling stock for the future. Absolutely not. I think that's one of our strategic thing to have a deeper look into for the future. I think sometimes that we tend to disqualify the secondhand rolling stock quite early. And I think from a sustainable point of view, I think we could give a lot of rolling stock both a second and a third life in some cases, and we can do it quite good as well. So I don't think that's the main issue, to be honest. But I think, I mean, having a look at at least the European rolling stock market, I would say that we could see that there's not a great market in terms of number of players and a big number of competitors working on, for instance, new manufacturing of passenger coaches, for instance. But there are some projects going on, and I think I'm positive to see what they will look like in the future. But I still think that's also a matter of having a standardization process ahead, which is not focusing too much on particular national requirements, etc., because that's what makes them very costly, and also creates that you need to have a quite long-term business plan with as low risk as possible to press the green button. And I think right now there's too much obstacles in place to push that green button, honestly speaking. So I think that's one of the questions as well, which we need to highlight.
Okay, thanks. So moving on to André Schwämmlein from FlixMobility. What's your view, please, on the whole rolling stock issue, second-hand, new, availability, supply market, etc.?
Yeah, very fair point from Adam. I think one of the major blockers is like the conditions we are working in, and to be certain enough to do that kind of investment. And I mean, we always signaled we are willing to do this investment in the belief that the European Commission and is supporting a level playing field, and we believe in that statement. And it's good to have a strong referee. If at least your competitors on the field are stronger than you are, then you need a good referee, and that's the trust we put in the European Commission, and therefore we would be willing to invest in rolling stock. I think a bigger lever that can be pulled is like the whole financing topic. Because obviously state rail essentially financed on the back of like an implicit state guarantee, which brings down financing costs dramatically. And that's simply not the same case for a private player entering a new market. And I think this is a major barrier that could at least be tackled with the instruments of the European Commission that they have at hand. So we don't have the ultimate exact solution, but I think there are things at hand that can be done to trigger that.
Okay, thanks. Barbara Thaler, MEP, you just heard what André Schwämmlein from Flix said. State guarantee for rolling stock. How do we, is that a good idea? How do we make the access to rolling stock issue more fair and non-discriminatory, please?
I would like to tell you one thing which I wasn't aware of when it comes to rolling stock. And all of us agreed before that we need to get rid of obstacles, which makes it more complicated to do cross-border operations. So, and I thought, okay, we need to do this. This is the job for the European Parliament, for the Commission, also for the member states, and the industry needs to push in that direction. And ERA is doing a good job, by the way. I just wanted to add this. And 2 weeks before, I heard from a sector representative that in 2 or 3 years, they cannot use existing rolling stock driving to Italy because of new fire safety issues. So what? We are trying to get rid of more and more and more obstacles, and then we have a new one, and we cannot use existing rolling stock when we would like to drive to Italy. So really, I don't get it. Yeah, it is really a hard work to do. I know that there may be reasons when it comes to fire safety, but yeah, I don't know what to say.
Okay, Anna Deparnay-Grunenberg, what do you think of the rolling stock issue, please, and interoperability of rolling stock?
Yeah, we see the sector is looking for signals. So For instance, I am hoping that Germany is more going step forwards for the night trains. And so if more and more is coming up, we see the sector will produce more rolling stock, but it's not there yet. So it's a kind of hesitation on that. And I think we should be creative in meanwhile to provide rolling stock. And we see some initiative for pooling rolling stock, and maybe to have this idea that we can lease some. So we can maybe make it possible for some new entrants to test, not just a month, but for a while, for a few years, and not to be forced to really buy new rolling stock. So maybe that's a kind of idea. We can see it. It's the same sort that by car sharing, you don't need the same type of car. It depends what you're doing on this day. So maybe it could be an idea to have this kind of pooling and have really modern ones for high level business traveling through night. Maybe you have some other ones that are more for tourists or for I don't know, for young people that don't care, but they want to have it a little bit cheaper. So that could be an idea that we are supporting such initiative. But I don't know, maybe the sector has an idea on that, if it could work or not.
Carl Adam, did you briefly raise your hand on this issue, or?
No, I just had a comment, and I think the situation that we can see in one country is actually applicable in more countries. Unfortunately, I need to say, Barbara. So it's not just a matter of the situation in Italy. I'm afraid to say we have similarities in Denmark as well, from my point of view. But coming back to your question, I think maybe, I mean, the pooling concept could be one idea. I think coming back to the challenge or the balance when it comes to night trains, which is one of my specialties or our specialties, then I think the rolling stock specification is the next question, because apparently we do offer couchette coaches and seating coaches, and from at least from the Swedish government point of view, that's not what the market want. They want sleeping coaches, and I think coming back to that question, I think it's very hard to find what kind of standardization rolling stock would be good enough for all different cultures and countries. I mean, we have been working quite hard to develop our couchette coaches that you can have one compartment by yourself. You have a mattress, you have a full, like with linen and duvet and pillows and etc. And those people who has tried it, they are really happy. But people who are not tried it, they say, I'm not going with a couchette. So I think sometimes we have strange behaviors among both politicians and among citizens and customers, which blocks us from looking, okay, what could be a new market solution instead of what I'm used to expect from a more traditional point of view, because traditional point of view wasn't really working, because we didn't have as many night trains just 5 years ago, because all the incumbents were saying, let's leave the night train business behind us, apart from one actually, and that's they are doing a good job now, I must say, but we need more than just one big player operating night trains for the long run. And I think we could definitely be one of them, but maybe not the biggest one, but still one important one, trying to configure another kind of concept for this niche market, which is kind of is.
Okay, thank you. Just to give Kristian Schmidt a bit of time on this issue as well, because I realize we've only got several minutes left. So Kristian from the Commission, EU Commission, what do you think on the rolling stock issue, please?
Thanks a lot, Nick. We actually studied that a little bit, and I mean, for rolling stock in general, there are out there companies on a market basis leasing rolling stock, and they tell us very clearly, please don't kill our business by handing out rolling stock for free. But there's a specific issue for night trains, and I just want to acknowledge that. Of course, 20 years ago, when we introduced liberalization for aviation and high-speed lines were connected, that killed all the night trains. We lost something like 800 connections per week. So there is a short-term shortage of rolling stock for night trains. This is the reality, and therefore this is something we will address in our action plan that we will be presenting in December. Incidentally, we have the European Investment Bank very much engaged with us on that. They will open a specific finance window. They have a new transport lending policy where rail is very prominent and where rolling stock also figures. So I think there is not a lack of finance, and I would even say soft finance for rolling stock, including for night trains. The money will be there, including at the European level. But it's more, and I think both André and Carl Adam touched on that. Can you come up with a credible business plan that will convince those who are to extend the finance that this new night train service will be competitive and commercially viable? So we come back again to the issue of the level playing field, that we need rolling stock that can go everywhere so that you don't have these interoperability issues. So we come back, and I thank Anna Deparnay-Grunenberg for her strong support for the work of the European Railway Agency of reducing the railway nationalism. These again are all parts of the solution. But rolling stock, yes, short term for night trains, it's an issue, and the Commission will address it in its action plan. The money is available.
Okay, thank you. We haven't really got much time left at all, so I'd like to ask all of the panelists just to give perhaps 1 or 2 sentences each on what actions they specifically want to take to grow the rail sector, to grow passenger rail more specifically, and win more people over the next 5 to 7 years before 2030. Perhaps we can start right away with you, Kristian, seeing as you were the previous speaker.
Thanks, Nick. 3 points. Swift and full implementation of the 4th railway package. It's been said by all the speakers. We have good laws on the books, but they need to be enforced on the ground, enforcing competition, market openings. Point 1. Point 2. We're talking about passenger rail, so we must focus on the passengers. Services must be offered, they must be affordable, tickets must be available in an easy manner. Point 3, we have to improve the enabling environment by getting rid of all the obstacles. And to that end, the Commission is working on an action plan that we will present in December, and I hope it will be embraced by the industry and by the co-legislators, because this is our effort to boost passenger rail. We have a target to double by 2030 and triple by 2050. There's a collective effort there that we all should work on. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks very much. Anna Deparnay-Grunenberg, MEP, what are your key actions for the next 5-7 years, please?
I will focus on better conditions for cross-border and all topics we had. So on the night train and the better connection of our capitals in Europe and on the regional level. So the missing links, really to have a look on that. It's so often hardware we have to make better. I will have a look and work to this better rail passenger ride that we have better through ticketing and all the rides you can take from A to B whenever you are changing our operator or not. And the third one, we want to see this part of the Commission we've heard today here being stronger in the European discourse. So thank you very much. We will reinforce this renaissance of rail and making the other transport modes, in the size they have to be done, that we have a fair level playing field between the transport modes.
Thank you. And Barbara Thaler, MEP, your final comments, please.
Yeah, and Nick, thanks a lot. I really do believe that only if we open up Europe, rail can show its real strengths. So especially aviation provided us with the necessary blueprints on that. So I am really confident that we will see more passengers on rail if the legislative framework encourages rail to compete for customers instead competing for subsidies. So as Anna said before, I will also focus my attention on every piece of legislation which ensures common technical standards, which aims to get rid of administrative burden, which especially on the border sections, and which ensures a healthy legal level playing field for all railway undertakings, be it incumbents or new entrants.
Thank you very much. And Carl Adam Holmberg from Snälltåget, what are your final comments, please, on the next 5 to 7 years? In just one sentence, if possible.
Sure.
We don't have much time.
No, and then just must start to say thank you for a good discussion. And I think I would like to come back to what has already been said. I think we need to focus more on the obstacles. We need to remedy them, and I think we need to at least consume less painkillers, maybe not non-painkillers, but because I think that's the way forward. And I definitely have a bright future for the rail industry. So I'm happy to go that way together.
So less painkillers than currently planned, probably. And then finally, André Schwämmlein from FlixMobility. The next 5 to 7 years. I mean, you acquired Greyhound last week in the US. What are your plans? Will there be passenger rail in the US soon with FlixTrain or Greyhound trains? And what are your thoughts on Europe, please, for the next 5 to 7 years?
True, we had one big topic to solve last week, and now we're looking fully into Eurorail. That's a big priority for us. We are willing to deliver. I think it's a unique moment. People want to travel. They want to see Europe. I think we have a proper regulation. If it's properly enforced, we are willing to deliver, and we trust the European Commission and the European Parliament to support the level playing field here. And I think then we can make a huge step forward. And I think it's a great moment in time to do that.
Thanks, André, and thanks to everyone else. So that means Kristian Schmidt, Barbara Thaler, MEP, Anna Deparnay-Grunenberg, MEP, Carl Adam Holmberg, and André Schwämmlein for this discussion today. I think we've covered all of the key issues for the next years. So we know what it's all about. Now we just have to act going into the future. Thanks to everybody following this event around the world today, this afternoon, or this evening in Asia, this morning in North America. I'm sorry that we couldn't answer all of your questions on Slido. We do appreciate that you did pose them. We'll just have to do another session sometime soon, so to cover the other questions as well. So thanks very much. We'll have to do this again sometime. It was a lot of fun, and wishing you all a very pleasant rest of the day. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Great discussion. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.